Well, my name's John Wheeler, and I wrote the Chronicles of Cadillac Dave. That's a 4-book series. I used the Dave Jackson alias as a pen name, but frankly, it's my story, and I'm happy to take responsibility for it. I put that subtitle, True Confessions of a Drug Kingpin. It was kind of a tongue-in-cheek, kind of facetious thing, because the DEA and the FBI and all these enforcement agencies and every local agency, I mean, they wanted to portray me as this, big, huge kingpin character. And when I look at myself in the context of all the people I knew and what I really knew was really going on, I was a pretty small cog. But it was more tongue-in-cheek to say kingpin, although I'm sure there are probably people who would still argue that that's what I was. It was an interesting thing. I was always an athlete in high school. I never even smoked a cigarette. I never even drank a beer until I graduated from high school. That summer, I started drinking some with some friends of mine. And actually, at that time, sniffing glue was a big thing. And that's kind of what we were doing. We were mixing up a bunch of mixed drinks in a blender and sniffing glue. And this was before marijuana came along. This was the late 60s, and in Chattanooga at least, nobody knew what marijuana was. It was a couple of years later when I was in college before I ever got introduced to marijuana, and that's when I started smoking pot. I was in with the little anti-war hippie folk singer group, and it was kind of cool. We'd go to the coffee houses and sit out in the parking lot and smoke a joint, and it was just like the greatest thing in the world, and that's how it all started. Somebody said the key to success is to sell what you love to do, and so in the beginning that was marijuana, and that was kind of it was kind of in my mind at least, and in the people around me, this was like a righteous adventure, that nobody had this stuff. Everybody wanted it. It was the fuel of the counterculture. And when I discovered how I could go and get it and bring it back, I was like the hero, and so I always resented that stereotype of the shifty drug dealer over in the shadows, sneaking little things to kids coming out of schools. It wasn't like that at all. It was people my age or older than me who wanted marijuana, and it was being suppressed and nobody could get it, and I brought it. Later on, after I discovered cocaine, I loved cocaine, and I got into that. I was actually sentenced to a term 3 times. And the first time was not related to drugs. It had to do with burglary, where I was running with these older guys, and we were breaking in places, and they were saying, "Hey, Johnny, you got more nerve than Jesse James. You go in here." And then I'd be the one that got caught. But anyway, I was in the workhouse when I was 18 the first time, got out when I was 19. The next time it was drugs, where I had sold some marijuana to the first undercover agent in Chattanooga, and it was a pure set-up entrapment kind of deal, but they got me, and I was out there, and I'd been there about 3 months, and I had a trusty job. It wasn't any daring jailbreak. I had a trusty job down at the hog lot, and I found out that there were some things happening that were pretty upsetting. My partner had stolen my money. My old lady was running off with somebody, and I just got mad, and one day left, and I escaped for 3 years, and that's when a lot of these adventures happened while I was an escaped fugitive, kind of flying under the radar. I went straight to Tucson, where I started buying pot and taking it back to Atlanta, and then found some connections down in Mexico and started smuggling, and it was very different back then. Mexico's the same in some ways, but it's much more violent and murderous now than it was then. Back then, I would walk across the bridge from Nogales, Arizona into Nogales, Sonora, carrying a Ritz cracker box full of money, you know, and just a hippie going across the bridge, and then I'd go down the alley and there's Carlos's place, and you know, I mean, he had his wife and little kids, and you know, it was just a destitute type place, and I really felt great because, you know, you could see how much good it was doing them to be able to sell this marijuana to me, and then back home everybody loved it, and so that's how it was. Personally, in terms of smuggling, probably only about 1,000 pounds. It was really a hippie amateur hour thing, you know. You had an old beat-up pickup truck and a bunch of Mexican teenagers with duffel bags, and every duffel bag had 60 to 80 pounds of pot in it and bricks, and they would, on the Mexican side, they would go through and pay off all the farmers and the federales to open the fences and let them through down to the border, and then they'd all jump out and they would carry the bags through the desert across the dry riverbed over to the Arizona side. And when it was dawn, we would swoop down in a truck and pick it all up there behind the Keno Market, right on the main Patagonia Highway outside of Nogales. And, you know, we had a little Radio Shack walkie-talkies that we were communicating with, and this was our smuggling deal. So, you know, 500, 600, 1,000 pounds, that's what we did. I was arrested at the Executive Park Hotel on January 31st of '75. It was almost 3 years to the day from the time I escaped from Silverdale here. And they were promising me 30 years. The DEA people came in, the U.S. Marshals came in, took all my jewelry, said, you won't be needing this, you know. But I had some really good lawyers, and as it turned out, through just a variety of brilliant legal maneuvers, which are all detailed in the book, I did go to Reidsville Prison in South Georgia, but only for a brief time, and it was about 22 and a half months later that I was out again, and that was the last time that I was in prison. I can't detail everything that happened during those years, but suffice it to say, there was a lot of occultism. There was a voodoo connection to cocaine smuggling that I never knew about, that I describe in the book. You know, I mean, the plane couldn't come if the chicken lady didn't give it clearance. I mean, I thought, you got to be kidding me. I didn't believe in any of that stuff, but it was going on all around me, and eventually it had an effect, and I had some pretty surrealistic experiences, which I really can't detail for you on this camera. You know, it was hard enough to write it in the book. I ended up in a mental hospital for about 6 weeks, and they wanted me to stay longer, you know, but I didn't. And all that led to a process of searching what happened. What happens to snap my mind? And that led me to begin to search for God, and that led to a dramatic conversion experience down in Miami in March of '81 that totally transformed my life. And from that point on, there was no more drugs, there was no more anything. To me, everything about the drug dealing, the smuggling, the parties in Atlanta, the rock bands, all that, I mean, yeah, that's interesting, that's enticing. A lot of people want to read it because of that, and that's fine, but it's really the backstory. It's just what brought this particular individual to this point in time where I had this satanic supernatural encounter that almost destroyed me and forced me to call on God, which I had rejected to that point in time, and how my life changed after that.